Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. My name is Edmond, Kizito, your host. On Spectrum tonight, analyzing the State of the Nation address. Did the president meet your expectations? President Museveni today delivered the State of the Nation address, reporting on how the country has performed in the last 1 year since he was sworn in as president. He spoke about the challenges, the achievements, and what his government intends to do in the coming year. His speech touched on a number of issues in all the political, social, and economic aspects. It marks the official opening of the second session of the 9th Parliament, and usually the speech is looked at as a precursor of what is likely to happen in the national budget, what is likely to be in the national budget, which is going to be read out on Thursday next week. So tonight we've assembled a team of analysts to review some key issues raised by the president. We will also engage you and ask you to tell us what you think about the same issues, and if at all, your expectations were actually met. Our guests tonight, Honorable Dr. James Nsaba Butuuro, former State Minister for Ethics and Integrity. You're most welcome, Honorable Nsaba Butuuro.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We're also joined by Ms. Ritah Aciro, Executive Director of the Uganda Women's Network. You're most welcome, Ritah.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Godbar Tumushabe, Executive Director of ACODE. ACODE is the Advocates Coalition on Development and the Environment. You're most welcome, Mr. Godbar Tumushabe.
Yeah, good evening, listeners.
Talk to us, Godbar. How did the president score in your view?
No, I think I would have actually expected a different State of the Nation address. First of all, I would say I thought the president had one of the best moments in the speech, because normally when he makes jokes, they are jokes. When he makes serious points, they are points. But I thought today he made a very interesting joke that I found very serious when he reminded the members that he's giving a State of the Nation address because he's the president, and those who are not president should listen. And I thought that was a very serious joke, because he's our president, so we expect him to come and report, and yeah, everybody should listen. Now, listening to the speech, I thought that what he needed to report on was more of what the government has done so far. What is the state of the economy? What is the state of our nation in terms of the social, the political, the economic? And what are the big things that have happened over the last 1 year? And where are we moving forward? Now, the problem is that the speech was, all over, and I think there was lack of the future. There is a lot of diagnosis of the problem, of why we haven't been able to move forward. It really didn't give me so much of like, this is where we are moving and this is where we move. I think the last point that I would make is, and I really wouldn't blame the president. I think I would really blame the people who work for the president to write these speeches. That the speeches that the president gives, especially like this one, there is a lot of blaming of others who have either stopped this, not done things. I think that the people who write the speeches for the president need to remove the blaming of others and focus on governing and doing things. Because you see, when the people of Uganda elect you and give you a job, it's about doing things and solving problems. It's not about blaming others who stopped from doing things.
Or maybe if you remove the blame, there will be nothing to say. Ritah, talk to us about the politics. How did the president score overall? But I'd like you to zero in on the politics. He said he's going to spend more money on curbing riots.
Edmond, thanks. And just as Godbar has said, my expectation, and I'm sure it was the expectation of many people, is the State of the Nation address should have centered around what we set ourselves to do, or what government set itself to do in the last 1 year, what it has been able to achieve, and probably, as it has been mentioned earlier, what the challenges were. For me, what I find very, very difficult when, listening to the president, everything is around him. Let's identify the challenges and say, for example, last year we got X amount of money and we had planned to do A, B, C, D. And with the money we had, this is what we're able to achieve. As citizens, you need to raise more taxes, you need to enable government to deliver. But the State of Nation address centers around the president, me, and government, myself. It's so disempowering to the citizens. Yeah. That is very, very disempowering. And we all know whether it's the woman who sells tomatoes on the roadside makes a contribution, whether it is the minister who sits in that office makes a contribution. But the money that he talks about is taxpayers' money. And that acknowledgement needs to come out very, very strongly. And I think also his speech should have also centered on the expectation of the people. As Godbar said, I'm sure that technical people around our president who should, put their ears on the ground, what the expectations are, and he should speak to the people and speak to their hearts. That's what he's
going to spend more money on curbing riots so the economy can grow very well. What's your view on that? Well, he says he's looking forward to the public order management bill, so we don't see any more demonstrations in the city.
Well, whether the bigger picture, is it the demonstration that is a challenge to him, or it is the poor people that are actually the challenge? Who are these people demonstrating? I think we need to be a little bit in-depth in trying to address our challenges other than addressing the symptoms, which is partly probably the demonstration. I think our president needs to be addressed more, or maybe he needs to listen more.
Honorable Nsaba Butuuro, what's your own assessment of this speech? Did it meet your expectations?
It did, actually, and more than my expectations.
Oh, 110%.
I would think that in those departments my colleagues have identified, he did very well. People forget that the State of the Nation address is a strategic overview of a number of issues. In other words, the State of Address of the kind you saw today deals with the strategic issues. The tactical ones, the issues they are raising, my friends, will be listened to in the budget, which will shortly be coming our way. But he actually touched on all those critical issues and, of course, didn't go into details because that is reserved for the budget day. But I'm happy that on the fundamentals that will make this nation prosper the way it deserves, he did dwell on them. I was happy with the confident way he delivered the statement, and of course, tinged with the sarcastic remarks towards the opposition. But I must say, they have not behaved particularly well over the years. Over the last year, you would get an occasion when you think that they simply...
You talk about the demonstrations.
The demonstrations, obviously, remarks made in the media, and so on and so forth. These actually don't help the nation. They may think they are targeting the person of the president, but actually the effect of what they do day in, day out, it has a negative influence on the nation's performance. But I must repeat that he touched on the key issues, how the performance of the economy has been affected by events outside this country, what internal factors have militated against the performance of the economy. He may talked about the drought, he talked about disputes, the quarreling which goes on among the political class, he talked about demands for higher wages, he talked about actually growth in sectors that don't generate sufficient external revenue, and not even jobs. He touched on those and suggested that we have got to stop this and concentrate on those areas that will give us revenue, external revenue, will create more jobs. In my view, it was absolutely balanced. I repeat, the State of the Nation address deals with
strategic document.
Strategic issues.
The tactical matters
come
later in the budget. Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight we are hosting Dr. James Nsaba Butuuro. We're analyzing the State of the Nation address. Did the president meet your expectations? Our guests, Honorable Dr. James Nsaba Butuuro, former State Minister for Ethics and Integrity, Ms. Ritah Aciro, Executive Director of UONET, that's the Uganda Women's Network, and Mr. Godbar Tumushabe, Executive Director of ACODE, that's the Advocates Coalition on Development and Environment, one of the country's biggest and probably most influential NGOs on advocacy.
Actually, you can call it think tank.
Think tank. It does some thinking as well, doesn't it?
We look at ourselves more of
as
a
a
think tank than a traditional NGO.
Than a traditional NGO.
Yeah.
That could be very, very accurate. Before we leave you, Honorable Nsaba Butuuro, you spoke about strategy. Talk to us about the economy. Does he sound like a man who has his fingers on the economy?
Absolutely. He's in control. He has identified the key strategic bottlenecks, and I'm happy he did that. One of the things that interested me was isolating the issue of corruption.
But he wasn't strong on corruption.
He wasn't.
He was very weak on corruption.
Yeah, he was going to be when it comes to budget day, you see. But the
budget doesn't talk about corruption. Corruption is
you will see. No, what happens, of course, on the budget day, when the Minister of Finance finishes, the President also comes in and reinforces what the government is going to do that day. But he singled out corruption. He singled out really the conduct of the political class, and obviously events which are obtaining, particularly in Western world nations. And those are the key areas that have, in a way, destabilized our performance. But in recognizing that those are the critical areas, he's rallying. And actually, this statement was rallying the nation, saying, look, we can do better. We are going to do better. We have isolated. We know what needs to be done. We need some discipline. I do believe he really pointed out what needs to be done this year. Of course, we are going to see whether it will be done or not. My view is there is general satisfaction that clearly we can do better than we have done so far, and I see that happening in the coming year.
Obviously, an accomplished diplomat, also coming from the NRM party. We don't expect you to really criticize the party.
It's my now. How are we doing this nation injustice if I came out to say yes when actually the answer should be no? And this is where the president actually pointed that out as well when he was criticizing political leaders who always say no, even to projects that are intended to uplift the well-being of our people. It's injustice of the highest order to say no when the answer should be yes, and I'm not of that class.
Mr. Godbar Tumushabe, the biggest point apparently was import substitution. He said let's move to what he called the small industries and move away from services. Services contribute about 57% of the GDP. It's grown very fast. Agriculture contributes just about 15%, 15.7%, I believe, 17%. Yeah. Does he really sound like a man who has his tab on the economy?
You see,
or is he groping in the dark?
Yeah. No, one of President Museveni's major accomplishments and Uganda's major accomplishments under his leadership has really been the area of the economy. You know, getting the economy from the tank where it was in 1986 and moving it to a level where it begins to be competitive. It gives Ugandans pride, and I think the challenge for the president and for us as a country is that we've moved from where we are, but do we have
we moved from where we were?
We moved from where we were, and here we are, but do we have a clear plan, a clear strategy on moving forward? And for me, in the series of addresses that the president has given is really trying to look for that strategy of moving forward, and you can't easily find it. Now, you
can't easily find. The president is looking for it, and he can't spot it.
No, he can't spot it in his addresses. So if you look at he's talking about industries, and then he doesn't mention how this country moves the agriculture sector in a more strategic and robust manner. Can this country actually industrialize without a more strategic and robust investment in agriculture? Then we talk about, we need to remunerate scientists, which is perfectly okay. But are we really sure that we can achieve faster transformation if we don't deal with human capital? That we can't remunerate our teachers to be able to teach our children. That we can't invest in tertiary education the way we should be. We can't remunerate our doctors and make sure that we have quality human capital. That you can just invest in scientists and then you don't make the kinds of investment you need to make in teachers and doctors, who are responsible for the quality of the human capital that you generate. And I think there is quite a lot that, yes, the president has said, but when it comes to what are the specifics in terms of how you move this country forward, you really find that, there are pieces here and there. They don't easily come together.
So it's got a rough idea, industrializing agriculture. Yes. It's a little bit like a man meets a woman. He tells him, you really are nice, the dimples and so on, but he can't say, I want to marry you.
Yes.
He's failing to link agriculture to industrialization. Yes. Ritah, talk to us about that. The president singles out import substitution. He talks about industrializing agriculture. He talks about the little industries. People make, juices in the corners and garages and so on, but it's failing to make a link. Where is the missing connection there?
Now, when I listened to the president and he said we need to pay scientists better and the teachers can wait.
He did completely.
Yeah.
He left out the teachers.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, who is actually producing who? Is it the scientists producing teachers or teachers producing scientists? That was my question. So, but putting that aside, for me, again, we need to go back to the roots. While you talk about the small industries coming up, the borders and everybody in town, ask yourself what happened to the agricultural sector. What happened?
Yes.
So probably the president, as Godbar said,
we lost the agricultural extension
exactly.
workers. We lost the cooperatives. We lost the food silos in the regions.
The strategy should have come very, very clear how we are going to go back into the agriculture sector. Why are we having so many border riders in town? Who actually, you buy one border, he's the only employee, and yet that one labor, if he was on maybe even half an acre of land, he would produce more than the border. So I think we need to have clear strategies how we are going to arrive there, and that's what we expected in the State of the Nation address.
And you didn't see that?
You didn't see that.
You expected him to talk about... Honorable Nsaba, you should have spoken about agriculture extension workers. Yes. You should have spoken about reviving the cooperatives movement. Yes. You should have spoken about the cooperatives bank, which collapsed under this regime.
Yes, but really you can't do that in, address all the issues that need to be addressed. That's
well, he spoke about West and Mandela.
Oh, yes, of course.
Which actually,
from time to talk about.
We've seen these guys enough.
And I noticed that people enjoyed
they enjoyed that.
which is okay. But I thought, frankly, that having given that strategic overview, he also highlighted the core issues. I remember him doing that very, very well. The core issues, meaning that it's those, if we put more resources on those core issues, then of course the economy will respond positively, more jobs will be available, and so on and so forth. He highlighted defense, law and order, as those areas that must continue
to be an important matter.
Well, of course it is. Then he also talked about electricity, he talked about roads, education, health, tourism and scientific innovation. These are the core issues that the government is going to put much effort on, in the hope that of course they will now generate a momentum that benefits other sectors. I really thought, given the time that was available to him, he clearly didn't go into the kind of details that my friends are mentioning, but I guess if he had more time, he should have and would have expected
I think
him to do that.
Butuuro, you said you don't want to be unfair. I think you are being unfair to the listeners. Yeah. The president spoke for probably about 2.5 hours. And so when you compare the amount of time he dedicated to talk about political disagreements, and it's fine, talk about political disagreements, but you see, you talk about political disagreements by blaming the politicians on you blame the politicians that they are the ones who are creating the gridlock. But in terms of me as a citizen, as an ordinary citizen, you are not giving me a clear picture on how you resolve the gridlock. I would, for example, have expected the president to talk about the state of our democracy as a country. This is one important thing that the NRM...
What's there to talk about the democracy? We had an election last year.
No, you see, but you see the gridlock, the politics, the misunderstanding, the disagreements, which I identified as one of the major bottlenecks, is a product of the state of our democracy. So I would have...
Let's define that disagreements. We had riots before, and now they've fizzled out.
No, you see, sometimes you can even have the people who are rioting just almost taking cover. because they have been tear gassed and clobbered so much, so they can take cover. That has not solved your political problem. The disagreements among the political actors. So when you talk about the state of a democracy, I would have expected, for example, the president to say, we are going to operationalize the iPod. Is this called iPod? The Inter-Party Organization. The Inter-Party Organization. We are going to make this work so that these politicians, our political leaders, can engage in a conversation, in a meaningful conversation, without throwing words at each other. Then we say, yes, we are seeing now our political leaders giving leadership that helps us as a country to move forward. So I think it's not really about that he didn't have the time, and that's why I'm saying that the guys who prepare our president's address need to really, as Ritah said, put their feelers on the ground and feel the pain that Ugandans are going through. And when the president speaks to us in the State of the Nation address, he is talking to those issues.
Ritah, would you agree he was thin on politics, non-committal?
He was very, very thin on politics, but I just wanted to run quickly back to what Honorable Nsaba Butuuro said. While the president might have given this strategic overview of his State of the Nation address, the budget is derived from that strategic overview. And if you're not very specific within your strategic overview, then budgeting becomes difficult. Now, for us outside here as citizens, we are looking at those specifics, and it's the specifics that will hold government accountable to. So what do we hold you accountable to if you haven't laid it on the table? What are we going to be looking out for? What are we going to be monitoring if this is not laid on the table? And I think that's what we really needed to have heard from the president. This is what we're going to do, how we are going to do it. 1 year down the road, we'll say, yes, Mr. President, I think you have scored here. This is where the gap still remains. So as of now, we do not know what we're going to hold them accountable to.
Do you think there's still restiveness, the restiveness? The riots have fizzled out. Do you think we still have discontent under the surface?
You see, what Godbar said, while people might not be on the streets, I think there is a lot that our leaders need to get their feelers out there, listen to people, what's happening, our daily lives, people, the common people, leave alone these people on Kampala street. Let them go in the villages, let them know, live those people's lives. And you will really get to hear what people are talking about.
What are they talking about?
Health, basics. I was in the north the other day, nodding disease. In Kampala, it doesn't sound anything. Right. It's a big problem. Okay. Agriculture inputs, nothing. Yeah. So
well, they gave them some people harvesters. They are drying clothes on those. I don't know what they're doing with them.
How many are they? We are 33
Another
million,
man was riding a bicycle that's supposed to be used for plowing.
We are yet to see those bicycles.
Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a break, but we'll be right back.
When Junior lost his appetite, his mother tried all methods to get him to eat. She tried scary stories.
Eat, Tommy, eat, or the big black elephant will come and eat all your food.
She tried magic.
Tommy, if you eat your food, I will turn this handkerchief into sweets. Look, bumble, bumble, boom, boom.
Then she discovered Apetol multivitamin syrup with lysine.
Mommy, I finished all the food. I am number 1.
Apetol multivitamin with lysine is helping mothers to turn mealtime frustration to a fun moment. Apetol has a great taste and contains lysine, which quickly improves your child's appetite and supports healthy growth. Apetol, health for life.
Hear the voices and the sounds of Africa. One love, one spirit, one heart in Africa. See the beautiful sunset of Africa.
Celebrate Africa with one rate, one Africa from Airtel. Call across all Africa at a flat rate of only 10 shillings per second. That's right, 10 shillings per second all day, all night. And stand a chance to win a fully paid trip for 2 to Mombasa every week. Another reason to celebrate Africa in proud association with Fly 540 Airlines and Serena Hotels. Terms and conditions apply.
Airtel. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight, analyzing the State of the Nation address. Did President Museveni meet your expectations today? Our guests tonight, Honorable Dr. James Nsaba Butuuro, former State Minister for Ethics and Integrity, Ms. Ritah Aciro, Executive Director of the Uganda Women's Network, and Mr. Godbar Tumushabe, Executive Director of ACODE, the country's probably best or leading think tank. You two will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Honorable Nsaba Butuuro, we'll talk about politics a little bit more in detail later, but the NSSF, the President says he's going to use NSSF money to build roads. Is that okay for you?
Well, he pointed out several areas, and including NSSF. For me, really, if that money is there, it should be used.
Is it supposed to be for those kind of things? It's supposed to be money by the NSSF who determine where it goes. Why should the President go there?
There have to be discussions, consultations, and I think that's normal. It happens everywhere, that where there are resources that can be used for the benefit of nationals, that's all right. There is certainly nothing wrong. But he mentioned other areas, of course. They will look at more support from more friendly countries. And mind you, he also called on Ugandans, particularly the political class, to behave themselves, to show restraint. Now, because he did say if we were to reduce the wage bill by so much, it would help in construction of
like slashing salaries of teachers.
Yes, well, not teachers, but I think he's talking about the political class and so on. But the truth of the matter is he was broad in the way he hopes to generate resources that will help this country. Obviously, it is true that we still have some long way. Resources aren't going to be enough anytime soon.
Well, but the little that we have, how do we manage it?
Oh, the little, that's why he talked about corruption. That's why he talked about discipline. That's why he did say that, look, Ugandans, we can do better than we have done so far, much as we have been able to. But it's legitimate. It's in order, and actually government can be the best institution to lend to.
Well, normally it is.
Those whose money is the NSSF have nothing to fear. That money is safe. It's going to be used, generate more employment opportunities, and that is what should be done.
Godbar.
Yeah, but you see, I fully understand. I mean, government can be the best institution to lend to. But you see, here you are dealing with a major problem, because NSSF is an autonomous entity. It should design its investment plan and where it wants to put workers' money, because those guys in NSSF, we employ them, we pay them. When the President comes out in the State of the Nation address and said, actually, I may borrow money from NSSF, it has major implications on, is this a government policy to borrow from NSSF, or this is an investment plan by NSSF? So for the President to come out and say, I'm going to borrow money, it has implications, so you can't just take it lightly.
Let's get it clear. Normally the government borrows externally from donors. It also borrows through treasury bills. It can't go to a commercial bank to borrow. That would be highly improper.
Yes. So
it could distort the market.
It could distort the market. So if
borrowing through the central bank, it's regulated, even foreign aid. So if you go to NSSF, it could distort the economy.
Absolutely.
Because it's outside of the central bank's regulation.
So I think there is a problem there, and I think the point I'm trying to make is that it's okay for the President to have these ideas, but you see, that's not something for the State of the Nation address, because NSSF should be there. The guys we pay, we employ, they should be there figuring out how best do they invest my money.
Well, but the other time he bought jets and you told him he never consulted. Now he's doing it. Ritah, let's talk about this. Do you think that's a good thing? Very briefly on that before we move forward.
Government borrowing NSSF money? Yes, government can borrow NSSF money, but I just want to go back to the basics. The practice. If, for example, the money is borrowed, tomorrow my uncle works there, my auntie works there, how long will he or she take to get her NSSF?
Well, normally
we appreciate
what
that money.
What they pay out is a small amount.
Exactly. While we appreciate that money can be invested. When somebody who has paid NSSF for 30, 40 years, how long does that person take to get the money? The trouble. Because I think once we sense the benefit of the, lending to government, let's say, then nobody has a problem. But the problem is you lend to government, and then you who has been paying is, challenge, you can basics, you find old men, old women walking the streets of Kampala, chasing their money that they paid painfully.
What would you have wished to hear on corruption?
Wow, corruption. I don't know what else we could have. I don't know what I actually expected from the president this time around, because he has spoken. I think we need action.
What action? The vice president was jailed the other day.
And how long did he take there?
Oh, he spent a couple of days there,
and
sitting on the cold floor.
Yeah, after that, I think we need to start attaching some of these properties. Yeah. We need to start getting this money back physically.
But it was found he was an innocent man.
Yeah, so if proved innocent, well and good.
If I can talk just about 2 points, one on corruption, the other one on the wages. You see, the president comes up with it. It's a big point. Maybe people should not claim for higher salaries. But you see, if there is any action that is required on reducing public administration expenditure, the consumption which he talked about, that action actually is expected to come from the president.
Go on.
Because part of what has increased the wage bill is the creation of new districts, where you have a whole host of administrators coming in, and the creation of new districts then increases the size of the parliament. I have a paper that I did in 2008 where I was calculating and said, if you cut the Ugandan parliament then, when it was still 335 MPs, you cut them by 182 and you remain with about 150. The amount of money you save over 5 years, you could train over 50,000 MSc students in agriculture.
Masters of Sciences.
Yes, Master of Science in agriculture. You could train about 70 doctors at master's level. So you have public administration expenditure, which has really been engineered politically. So if you want to take action in terms of reducing the wage bill, you have to start from there. You can't start by saying, oh, let's underpay teachers or underpay doctors. But on corruption,
maybe you leave that point, let's get some context. Nigeria has 150 million people. We have 34 million people. We have almost the same size of parliament.
Yeah, but you see,
they're almost 5 times, and they're very.
The GDP of Nigeria is in the excess of $100 billion.
Yes.
Uganda has a GDP of about $19 billion.
15 is more like it.
So you can't compare these two countries. They're slightly.
Well, we're competing with them the same size of parliament.
Yeah, we're competing on the size of the parliament.
Go on, sir.
But on the corruption issue, we must congratulate government, including Honorable Nsaba Butuuro, when he was, when he ran some of those departments, that we put in place laws, we put in place plans, that we have all these action plans, and we keep on saying zero tolerance to corruption. Now, my argument has been that most of the corruption that you see, including up to LC1 level, is exported from above. That at the top level, we have ministers that are either corrupt or perceived to be corrupt. You have senior government public servants that are either corrupt or perceived to be corrupt. And that perception, whether real or not, percolates up to the lowest level. I think that...
the corruption sentiment.
Yes, and you see, the IGG has tried, the courts have tried, the police have tried, but I think the next level of action can only come from the president, where if you are a minister, you've been assigned the duty to manage Ugandan taxpayers' money, to manage Chogam, and the money is lost. Everybody agrees that Ugandan taxpayers lost money. The only thing that they are not agreeing on is who stole it. If you are president, at that point you say, Honorable Nsaba Butuuro, I gave you a job to look after Ugandan taxpayers' money. You didn't do the job well.
Go home.
You didn't steal the money because there is no evidence.
Take responsibility.
You failed to do the job.
I agree with my brother here that what we need where we are today is really a step further than where we have been for quite some time. Namely, to be tougher in terms of punishment, really. Yeah. I think we've not been particularly strong, and to the extent that frightens. Now, that's not something which would have come in this president's
Those are strong words. I'm glad to hear them.
But clearly, that's what is needed. Because those who are corrupt are ruthless. They simply don't care about anybody. We're not listening to what the president was saying today, of course. They must have been smiling.
They must have been smiling,
saying, what is the president talking about? They're in their own class. And therefore, what we need is a punitive punishment that really will make these people think twice. That is expected. We expect this. And we should give government the support we need. If we do not, the corruption that continues to pose a menace will cancel all the gains and also threaten what we intend to do. So clearly there has to be movement there, but it's not that it should have been in the statement the president gave today. We expect this when he's responding
You're
to
defending
the
him
statement.
again.
Of course I do. But not because I shouldn't, or I should. But this is what my expectations are, that we should be punitive. We haven't been, and the price for doing that is quite evident.
All right, maybe before we hear from the listeners, Ritah, finally the president is behind the public order management bill, and once it comes, there'll be peace for all men. No more riots.
We've been at it, Edmond. We've been at it, and of course we know our parliament can do anything in that house. And as civil society, we have, through Urinet, through ACODE, a number of civil society organizations have given their opinion. But I think the president needs, as I said, to listen to the majority of the people, not these people surrounding him.
They want the public order management bill, so they can sell their tomatoes.
I want to go a little bit, I live in Kampala, and I love Kampala that much. But these actions in Kampala is not the picture of what is outside there. So when people demonstrate on Kampala Street and everything, it doesn't mean everybody down there is demonstrating. Can we know, for example, probably the people demonstrating in Kampala are a representation of what is happening down there? And I think that's what our president and the people around him.
So you don't support the order management?
No, not at all.
Let's talk to someone who supports it.
Public order management? No, you see, we are, as a country, we have gone into the business of legislating on everything, even when we already have existing laws. Because you see, you can use the penal code to deal with people who are committing crimes and offenses. Now, the idea that you come up with a law to ban public gatherings and ask people to ask for permission for assemblies, and then you call yourself a democracy, is for me, I think that's ridiculous. That's in fact, when you look at the 10-point program of the NRM, and then you say, oh, it is the NRM government that is coming up with these kinds of pieces of legislation. It is really, sometimes you feel like, this is some bit of contradiction. Because I have been comparing, because I consider Ghana to be an emerging democracy. I've been comparing the laws of Ghana and Uganda, whether it is in the media, whether it is a current on oil. It is amazing how you see a serious difference in the mindset. So in Ghana, most of the legislation is enabling.
Yes.
So you find
and in our place here, beloved
so
motherland.
You realize that in the media law in Ghana, it's like journalists are entitled to this information. The public officials must brief journalists on this. When it comes to Uganda, it is prohibiting. You can't do this, you can't do the other one, and you can't do that. So the mindset, you really.
But not 200 radio stations. The practice.
No, but what do the radio stations
play
do?
music?
But the president
talk shows like this one.
No, essentially it's more.
But that's a sign of an open mindset. Let the people talk.
No, but you see, that
stations.
is not reflected in the laws that we enact. Yes, radio stations, but then we enact a law to say if any public official gives out information, you commit an offense. Now, normally in democratizing countries, access to information is the general rule rather than the exception. But
let's understand this. You open up so wide. 200 radio stations, that's a large number, really. Even if you went to Italy, I know Italy, they have quite enough. You need to regulate it a little bit.
No, to regulate radio stations?
Go on.
No, I mean, you can regulate radio stations. It's okay to have regulations, but the way you are regulating, does it actually enable the public to express their opinions, or actually the regulation becomes a restriction on expression?
All right, well,
and speech.
All right, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can call in now tonight, analyzing the State of the Nation address. Did the president meet your expectations? Our numbers 0414 348 111, 0312 260 390, 0312 261 390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Godbar, you can continue as we get the phone lines.
Yeah, no, I wanted just to direct the listeners, actually, if they have an opportunity to look at the 2011 State of the Nation address.
Yes.
Which was delivered, I think, on 10th of June 2011.
Yes.
And then you compare it with the address that was delivered today. You really feel like, yes, this is a degeneration in terms of quality. The people who prepared the address of 2011
went into retirement,
and maybe he didn't read the script.
Yeah, when the people who prepared the speech of 2011, it was very clear. This is the state of the economy.
All right,
this is the state of the energy sector. This is the state of agriculture.
Another caller on the line. Spectrum, hello. Hello. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Also, better if you switch off your radio or walk away from it. Spectrum, hello? Okay. Hello? Yes, sir.
Radio.
Yes, sir. Your name?
This is Usinji.
Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name?
My name is Ivan.
Ivan.
Well,
Spectrum, hello? 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 Good evening, sir. Your name?
How are you?
Very well, thanks. Your name?
Thanks for getting the studio.
Jimmy. Yes?
Mr. Butuuro and others. Mine is just direct to him. That will be good for them before you can begin.
Spectrum, hello? Hello? Please talk to us. All right. Okay. All right. Well, it seems to be something that's jammed there with the phone line. Let's get back to the studio. Honorable Nsaba, the man and a woman in Chisoro.
Right. First of all, let me touch on the issue of NSSF funds, because this is likely to be misunderstood, and people are genuinely concerned. It's their money; they need it when they need it, and but they need to remember the governments don't.
All right, the lines are working now. Spectrum, hello. Yes, sir. Your name?
Yeah, this is my someone from Olumero.
Samuel. Yes. Spectrum, hello. Okay, let's get back to the studio. Honorable Nsaba Butuuro.
Yes, the NSSF funds, well, people need to be aware that governments don't usually enjoy depending on external funding all the time. There's a lot of indignity, there's a lot of humiliation. You get forced to do things you don't really support. But of course, when you have your own funds, or funds which are for your nationals, it's proper in order that provided you consult, you go through the proper channels, you access that money. I'm not suggesting for a moment that the president has now decided that he will go and dip into the pockets of NSSF and get that money out. There are processes, and I think people should who have
follow
invested,
the same process like you followed in Bank of Uganda.
Well, clearly that's another issue, but there are processes which will be honored, and that money will find its way back. And I think it's better we depend on our own resources than depending on resources of others all the time. Now, the person in Aciro is interested in the state of the economy because it's that one that provides jobs. It's that one that provides the independence you and I need to do the kind of things of our choice. It's that one which empowers you to, of course, support your family and so on and so forth. Insofar as the economy was addressed adequately, in my view, by the president, by highlighting the threats, the kind of things that have slowed the economy down over the last year, the kind of things we need to do today, the restraint, fighting corruption, investing in those areas, sectors that really will give us a climate that will allow the economy to do better. He outlined those. To me, this statement was one of hope. So my friends in Aciro will definitely say, yes, he has got the fingers on the right, but I would think so. But of course, there are other. The problem is, there are so many things that need to be done.
Well, but in management, you talk about leverage.
Oh, yes, indeed. There are so many things, of course, but what you do is you highlight those areas. You think that if you invest resources in, then they will spur development in other areas.
Good.
You see, the person in Kisoro, in Ntungamo, Karamoja, you can talk about the constraints that the president talked about, the political disagreements. I think those issues for that person are peripheral. When you talk about the economy, we know that one of our major problems has been about production and productivity. So the person in Aciro is interested in how do you increase the production of Irish potatoes or the various products. The person in Ntungamo is interested in how do you make sure that this is a banana economy.
But the question you are raising, now those are tactical issues you are raising, which are the details. And frankly, if you wait, you're going to see much of this in the budget statement, which will be coming. It will be detailing. It will be detailing all these.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think our people, once they listen, they will know that yes, their concerns are being met. And what you are raising now could not be raised today in the strategic statement.
In the interest of time,
essentially, what I'm saying is that if you are talking to the ordinary man and woman in Kisoro, Ntungamo, Karamoja, and you don't actually, in the State of the Nation address, you don't give the big picture idea of how you move the agriculture sector forward, or how you move the education sector forward, or health, there is something that you are missing. You are missing out talking directly to the ordinary person.
Well, he's going to pay scientists better. Ritah?
Yeah, I think talking to the people is what we want to hear. Whether it is at a strategic level, how do you make it simple that this person in Kisoro, the person in Karamoja, the person in Kabale can actually understand and pick a benefit from it? We understand at strategic level you can't put all the details, but you can still mention.
Give an overview.
Yeah, give an overview, and it touches. And yeah, the president has said this is how we're going to sell our Irish potato, and this is how we'll be able to benefit from the agricultural sector. They will be proud people, and I'm sure with their little radios in the villages, they'll say, yeah,
be jumping up and down.
Something has been said about us.
And but you mentioned, like Jimmy said, the cooperative movement was not.
Edmond, just to complement Ritah's point, the president, which I think very rightly mentioned one lady about a demonstration farm.
Yes.
Now, what you would want to see is how strategically how the country takes that kind of example to a strategic level that benefits other people. So you can use those tactical examples to explain a strategic point that helps people begin to see, yes, we are moving, or this is the direction.
That's a very good example. He mentioned it, but there was no connect with.
There was no connection.
Absolutely. Did you see anything about access to markets? You spoke about the farmer in the village, or do we have open access to markets right now, or the roads? And
I think of course he talked it in general terms, and I think he made an important point where I think we must credit the president. I think the leadership he has provided in terms of creating regional markets, whether in Eastern DRC, in Southern Sudan, across the region. But I think the empirical evidence that is there is that our inability to take advantage of the markets. And recently someone was making a comparison between Uganda and Kenya, saying when our traders going to Southern Sudan, they are driving pickups and Dianas carrying commodities. When the Kenyans come, they are moving trailers of products.
Right.
Again, you see the difference.
And they do the banks as well.
Yes, and they do the banks.
As we sell them Gonja, and they love it so much in South. We have to end here. Thank you very much indeed, our dear guest, Honorable Dr. James Nsaba, Butuuro.former State Minister for Ethics and Integrity. Thank you for coming to Spectrum, sir. Ms. Ritah Aciro, Executive Director of the Uganda Women's Network. Thank you very much indeed for coming tonight. And Mr. Godbar, Tumushabe, Executive Director of the Advocates Coalition on Development and the Environment for ACODE. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond Kizito. Spectrum will be back tomorrow. But maybe again, before we go, industrialization. We don't seem to have got much on industrialization. Godbar.
No, actually, he dwelt more on industrialization. The president dwelt more on industrialization, which I think is great. But basically, it is about the connecting the pieces.
Well, he spoke about the SMEs, the small produce for manufacturers, but it could connect it with policy.
He also talked about light industries.
Yes.
And he really put more emphasis. I think he put quite adequate emphasis on that. But you see, you can't industrialize without the human capital. I think the most important resource that this country has is the quality of human capital.
Right. The quality of human capital.
Yeah, the quality of human capital. So the emphasis on investing in science is spot on.
All right.
But then you cannot just say we're investing in. You can't ignore teachers. You can't ignore health workers.
Thank you very much.
Then you don't connect the dots.
Thank you for tuning in. Spectrum will be back tomorrow.
Kana, mama, kana.